Well, welcome to Christian Answers. This is Pastor Jeff Short, your Bible teacher and cultural analyst. And today we're going to be looking at something that popped up this month. This month, unfortunately, is the time of the year that the LGBTQ plus $, all these other acronyms pop up because of the so-called Gay Pride Month. And we've had this for a decade or so now. And it just came in during the presidency of Obama, and it's been continued with the presidency of Biden promoting it. And it has grown to the point where it's become absurd. So you have this sexually immoral, perverted grouping of sins, and they have their own special month now. So Americans are supposedly supposed to get on board with all of this, but we as Christians know that we can't. We can't get on board with sin. We can't endorse sin. We can't promote sin. And what has happened lately is that Major League Baseball, like so many other corporations, is trying to ride the winds and check the temperature and put their finger up in the air and find out which way the wind is blowing and then go in that direction. And so they have sided with the sexually immoral, perverted LGBTQ gay rights movement. And so they're trying to pander and cater to that crowd. And so they have forced this year their players, all of their players, to wear a LGBTQ rainbow gay pride symbol on their cap. So it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, it doesn't matter if you believe in the Bible, you believe in God, you believe in morality. You have to endorse by wearing this gay pride cap. And some of the pictures on the San Francisco Giants said, no, we're going to do it our way. If we have to wear this stupid cap, if that's the requirement, we're going to write a scripture verse on our cap. And so what they did was they wrote a verse from Genesis on their cap. And they went out, and one of them was a starting pitcher, and he wrote Genesis 9, I believe, 11 through 16. A very harmless passage in Genesis 9, 11 through 16. It basically captures God's covenant with Noah and all living creatures after the flood. God promises never again to destroy the earth with a flood, designating the rainbow in the clouds as an everlasting sign of his promise. So they said, okay, we're Christians. We don't believe in gay pride. We believe that's a sin. That's an abomination, as God teaches in the Bible. It's a moral evil, sinful, and we're not going to go out there and endorse something that our faith teaches us is wrong. So what they did was they put a scripture verse next to the gay pride symbol. You can see right here. And it says basically the rainbow is a sign of God's covenant to Noah that he would never destroy the earth again with a flood. That's the Christian biblical understanding of the rainbow. Now, the gay rights movement, they stole that symbol of the rainbow, and they're trying to make it basically say you can be a diversity of sexual proclivities. You can have a diversity of sexual experiences, immoral experiences, LGBTQ, all these other symbols that acronyms that they have come up with. And it's a never-ending list. I mean, if you keep on adding one every 2 years or every month or so, you're going to have a long list of these sexually perverted practices, all supposedly a community. That's what they tell us. And so these pictures, these Christian pictures, two of them wrote the verses that said, we believe in this rainbow symbol, but it's defined by the Bible, by our faith, and it's a sign from God to Noah and all the members of the earth that he will never destroy the world with a flood. That's what it means. And then another pitcher on San Francisco Giants, he wore a regular cap out. So he simply refused to wear the LGBTQ pride symbol cap. And so let's look at Fox News gave a report on this, and then I'll comment on it, because this is something as Christians, this is a test of our faith. And these pictures, you got to give it to them, hand it to them, congratulate them, encourage them. They said, no, we're not going to buy into the sexually perverted symbol that the world has distorted. The true rainbow is from God. So we're going to define it the way we want to and not be pushed around and bullied around by this San Francisco Giants organization. So let's hear the report, and I'll make some comments on that as we go.
Critics are furious with Major League Baseball. It all started when the league was warning players against expressing their Christian faith on their uniforms.
Okay, so that is what got a lot of Christians upset. These players came out and they redefined the so-called gay pride flag symbol on their cap that they were forced to wear. They redefined it to go back to the Bible and say, no, that's a symbol of God's grace to Noah and the earth and people on the earth. And it's not the LGBTQ symbol. And they just put that little simple Bible verse. Well, the MLB pointed the finger at the players and said, you're being rebellious. You can't put personal expressions on your cap. So in other words, you have to do what we say to do, and what we say to do today is to endorse the sexual perverted practices of LGBTQ. So this is bullying on the part of Major League Baseball against Christianity. And so that's what her reference was in this report.
Several San Francisco Giants players wrote Bible verses on their caps during the team's recent Pride Night game.
Now, the thing about the Bible verses, you would think that, okay, they wrote Bible verses on their cap. I immediately thought of these verses that prohibit homosexual practices. So you could cite all kinds of verses in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament. You could cite verses from Leviticus. You could cite verses, the account of Sodom and Gomorrah that was destroyed by God for the sexual immorality and the perversion of their practices there. You could cite the direct commands that says a man shall not lie with another man as he would a woman. You could go that direction, and that's what I actually thought that they were going to do. But no, they actually took a very tame and controlled and modest pushback to the league, forcing them to endorse sin. They actually just turned it around and said, no, this symbol means the rainbow that God gave Noah. So very harmless, and still the league came back at these players. Hopefully they are not punished in the sense that they lose their careers, they lose their baseball career and future. I hope that it does not happen. But it is disturbing to see big organizations and corporations actually be anti-Christian on this issue.
Bob Schneider has offered to pay any fines those players may face.
They're all for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unless you have a diversity of opinion, then you're not included in your opinion. I'm tired of Christianity being the doormat for everybody else's beliefs to be stepped on us. It's an attack on Christianity. And I think the MLB screwed up. I think Americans are sick of this.
MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred is no stranger to scandal. In fact, back in 2020, in the midst of the George Floyd riots, the league dove into politics, backing the Black Lives Matter movement. More of the same following year. Manfred yanked the All-Star game out of Atlanta after pressure from the left. Some pushed the false narrative that Georgia's new voting laws amounted to Jim Crow 2.0. And in 2023, the Dodgers invited the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to their Pride Night.
I remember that occasion back in 2023 where this grotesque, blasphemous mockery of Christianity in the form the Roman Catholic Church, it mocked them because of the nuns. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence was a supposedly a lampoon. It was a satire on Catholic nuns, only these nuns were perverted, sexually immoral, transgender, LGBTQ nuns who basically made fun of the Catholic Church and the whole idea of nuns and so on and so forth. Now, as a Protestant, I don't believe that nuns are biblical. I don't believe that to have these orders of women. But that's a difference of, say, expression. I mean, I can tolerate nuns, women, single women who have decided to give their lives over to service of the church and to be part of the church's reach out to poor people and to people in third world and all these different teaching in private Christian schools and all that. That's fine if they want to do that. It's not taught in the Bible that women should congregate into orders and give themselves over to holy orders, they're called in the Catholic Church. So we have a difference of opinion in our understanding of biblical Christianity with Roman Catholicism. Yes, definitely. But I will defend the Roman Catholic Church right to have these offices in their church and not have to receive mockery and blasphemy from these sexually perverted groups like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And it's especially offensive when you are forcing it on the public who go to a baseball game. So the Dodgers decided they were going to have an LGBTQ pride night, and they brought these really gross caricatures of nuns into the stadium and acted like it was a big show. And forcing baseball fans, we're there for baseball. We're not there for some LGBTQ flamboyant display of perversity. And so this is really shows an animosity on the part of Major League Baseball organization at the highest levels, that you would even think that this was something that you should do. Who came up with this incredibly stupid idea to offend the majority of your fans? Most of the people that go to these baseball games are probably Christians in one form or another, because that's what the Western nations are historically, and the United States is right now, majority Christian nation. So why are you slapping your fans in the face, and why are you siding with this sliver of a population, this slim, 3, maybe 2, 3, 4% of the population identify in some form of LGBTQ. And so you're going to sacrifice the vast majority of your fans just to please that group? It's insanity. So they did that, and that was an attack on Christianity, no question about it.
That group dresses in drag and satirizes Catholic nuns. Lucas Tomlinson has more, because there's more, Lucas.
That's right, Harris. The issue's gotten the attention of GOP lawmakers here in the nation's capital. Senator Josh Hawley writing MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred, quote, "You must answer for what appears to be a pattern of discrimination within MLB against baseball players who profess their Christian faith."
That's exactly right. And I'm glad that Josh Hawley was writing this letter to baseball commissioner and saying, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? We have to not mock and not offend and not slap Christians in the face. We need to be sensitive to our fans, and we need to be sensitive to our customers even. And to do something like this, when a lot of times families will gather around the baseball field and watch a sports game, it's a good, wholesome activity where family of all ages, you can bring children and the senior citizens and the mother and father and the family can all go to a baseball game, or they can gather around the TV set and watch the games together. And it's a very wholesome activity and brings families together and so forth. But we're seeing more and more of these organizations like the LGBTQ movements and their activist organizations working with corporations to shove this down the throat of Christian people and people, just citizens of the country, in order to indoctrinate them, to normalize this sexual immorality. And as Christians, we need to say, no, we don't endorse this, and we will not just buy into this and allow our families and our children to be exposed to this evil. It is evil. And so there should be some pushback, and I'm glad that Josh Hawley actually sent this letter. I don't know if it's going to do much in terms of change, but at least it puts them on notice that, hey, you can't get away with this anti-Christianity in a predominantly Christian nation.
Friday night, Landon Roop, a 27-year-old right-hander from Rocky Mount, North Carolina, started for the San Francisco Giants and pitched 4 2/3 innings with Genesis chapter 9, verses 12 through 16 written on his cap next to the rainbow-colored team logo on Pride Night.
Now that's, again, we already referenced that, but he took a very tame and polite way of saying, this is what I believe the rainbow symbol means, because the Bible defines it and my faith defines me, so I reference this symbol with the Bible. You can reference it any way you want. And he did make the comments to the press that, hey, I'm not against people. This is no offense to anybody. This is who I am. This is how I'm defining me. So I'm not buying into this sexually immoral, perverted symbol that has been hijacked by the LGBTQ movement. I am going back to the Bible, the original symbol of the rainbow, and that's, to me, what it means. And so if you're going to force me to wear the cap, I'm going to define what I mean by wearing the cap, and that's what he did. And we should thank God for people like this pitcher who stood up against the pressure.
You can see here, after the game, Roop said, there's no hate at all. It's just for what I stand for and what I stand on. I believe in God. 2 relievers also made appearances in the game with Bible verses on their hats. Another took the mound without his Pride Night cap, instead wearing the traditional orange lettering.
So the one pitcher said, I'm not going to step out into this controversy. I'm just going to wear my regular San Francisco Giants cap. And I'm not buying into the whole thing about the pride symbol. So he just sort of bypassed it. And as it turns out, he escaped most of the wrath of the gay rights activists by just wearing the simple San Francisco Giants cap. But you have to realize that, and people are going to have to realize this, when you work in a city like San Francisco, and we all know what San Francisco is, it's one of the most sinfully immoral, ungodly, anti-Christian cities in the country. We all know that. It has become a symbol of homosexuality. Gay pride is associated, and gay activity, and during the AIDS crisis, the gay bathhouses that were open all over San Francisco. San Francisco is associated with sexual immorality, perversity, LGBTQ. It's just grown up into that kind of a city. It once was a very beautiful city, had no association with that kind of immorality, but it has become sort of the Sodom of the United States. So before you work or sign up to work at a job in San Francisco or move to San Francisco, you've got to realize that's what you're moving into. So these pitchers, I guess when you're a major league pitcher, you go where you're traded, you go where you can work, you go where the money is available. If you want to be a pitcher in the major league, you have to go where they tell you to go. To some extent, you do have some choice, but you have to think about this. Hey, do I want to work in an environment where the government here will push and force and pressure me to endorse all kinds of sexual depravity? Am I willing to fight? And so good for these pitchers. They're willing to fight against it and say, okay, you can do whatever you want to do, but I'm not going to endorse or buy into your twisted value system. I'm going to stand strong for God, because God's more important than a job. God is more important than a paycheck, even.
Have a supporter in Vice President J.D. Vance, who posted on X, quote, "Trump won. We don't have to do this anymore." Now, San Francisco first added Pride Night uniforms in 2021. After the game, the Giants issued a statement apologizing to the LGBTQ plus community. Major League Baseball said, quote, "The writing on the caps violates our rules, and consistent with normal practice, we have warned the players about future violations."
So the San Francisco Giant organization apologizes to the sexually deviant, immoral, perverted crowd, and chastises the godly Christian men who say no to sin. That is exactly what the prophets in the Old Testament said, that they turn good into bad and bad into good, and up is down and down is up. They twist and pervert. That is satanic. That is the satanic inversion method, where Satanism and Luciferianism, they take something and turn it upside down. That's what the Church of Satan does with the Christian communion. They try to take all of the symbols of the cross and turn it upside down. They try to say the words of communion and say them backwards. It's a twisted, perverted, utterly rebelliousness that comes from Satan himself, and that's what they're doing here. So this is definitely anti-Christian, and we need to pray for these baseball players and anyone who is being persecuted for their faith. This is a form of persecution. There's no question. It's not the kind where they drag you off into the gulags. It's not the kind where they kill you like in the Roman theaters. The early Christians faced martyrdom. It is a subtle psychological and social persecution that people will face today.
I think people are tired of corporations, whether they're, in the business space or in the sports setting, forcing ideology on players in things like rainbow symbols on uniforms, as they were on some of the hats.
Well, it's really an effort to try to impose a false, fake understanding of reality. It's a lie, but if you can force and pressure people to at least go along with the lie, that's what they're trying to do. Now, they can't win on the basis of reason and logic and evidence. They can't win people over by persuasion and debate. So they have to coerce people, just like they did in the Soviet Union under the atheistic communist USSR, where they forced people to recite things they didn't believe. They forced people to act in ways they didn't actually want to act in. And we see that here. So any kind of time we can push back against this is good, because it tells these powers, these forces in society, no, we will not go along and live a lie, and we will not live by lies. We will stand on the truth and see where that goes.
The Texas Rangers are the only team in Major League Baseball that does not host a Pride Night this week. They're hosting Faith and Family Night instead.
And that is a great thing. We should really thank the Lord for the Texas Rangers down in Texas. They resisted the perverted LGBTQ Pride Night. The whole thing about pride is a farce. Taking pride in sin, that's the total opposite of what God commands in the Bible. People who are caught in sin, you think the woman caught in adultery, you think she faced that crowd with pride? No, she was humiliated. She was humbled. She was grieving and remorseful for what she had done and what she had been caught in doing. And this whole idea of being prideful about your sin, this is taking perversion and deviancy to a whole new level. This is satanic level deviancy and perversion and immorality, because that's what Satan does. Satan doesn't at all humble himself before the law of God, but he takes a greater pride in rebelling. And it's just pure rebellion. And thank God for the Texas Rangers organization and saying, no, we're not going to be participating in this foolishness. Who wants to go to the baseball game to be hit over the head and pressured? And it's actually a pressuring of the fans, too. If you go to a baseball game on one of these professional games, and now this this so-called Pride Night is all over the Major League Baseball. It's almost I think it's in every single Major League Baseball stadium at least once during the season, except for Texas. And so people come into the baseball stadium to see a baseball game, again, with family members, maybe. And all of a sudden, they're pressured into participating in a sexually immoral movement. And they're just supposed to, I guess, tolerate it and applaud it and celebrate it? No. Again, this movement is so pathetic that they're reduced to pressuring and bullying people into accepting their position. This is a sign of a failed argument. If you have to coerce people, if you have to hold a gun to somebody's head to get them to agree with you, you have not won the argument. You have lost the argument and you're resorting to force.
Florida's Attorney General posting on X, MLB will be hearing from his office soon. Harris?
That is great that we're getting some pushback from our political leaders. But again, this whole idea of making your employees, this case in Major League Baseball, support something that God has stated repeatedly in the Bible is sin, is just unconscionable. I mean, I would not work for a company that forced me to celebrate sin. I mean, this may be what it comes to in the future in a secular world, in an anti-Christian world as we go forward in the future. This is what may happen as more and more people turn away from God and then the government becomes more anti-Christian. There may come a time when Christians are going to have to pay a heavy price for being faithful to God. Now, you can compromise. There were early Christians who, when the Romans hauled them up before Caesar, he said you can worship Caesar or die. There were Christians who were cowardly at that moment, who compromised, who worshiped Caesar, but then walked away and said, I don't really worship Caesar, I worship Christ. But they weren't willing to stand and pay the price. And then the church had to deal with those Christians and say, well, what do we do with them, especially the leaders? What do we do? They were called the lapsed Christians. What do we do with people who chickened out and were cowardly and compromised to the state? We don't want to kick them out of the church, but they definitely have to go through some process to come back into full fellowship because they compromised, they denied the Lord. They sided with Rome just to save their skin. Well, we may be faced with that same situation today as we get more and more secular in our societies, and we have to choose right now, okay, how are we going to handle this? Are we going to stand for Christ and stand for the truth of Christ and stand for the Bible? Or are we going to compromise and cowardly cave to the political pressure of whatever the situation is? We're going to have to face that sometime, so you better start preparing for it and choosing the right direction. We'll see you back next week. God bless.